All right, welcome back to the Neville Goddard podcast. My name is Mr. 2020. It is the 27th of December, 2022. Today we're going to dive into naturalness. We're going to dive into procrastination. We're going to dive into speed really fast. But let's start with a tiny little Neville Goddard quote and dive into today's episode. So Neville says, when you walk in the feeling I am so-and-so, it is not seen as yet, but that is something you are bringing to the Lord. And the more you feel it to be real, the more natural it becomes. Then it clothes itself in external facts. But the external fact is not the truth of it. Truth and fact oppose each other. Truth does not depend upon fact. The fact is what you see. The truth is what you feel. But let's dive into letting imagination lead and the secret why I absolutely love the dwelling place quote. I really do. Let's dive in. Catch you inside the episode. Alrighty, let's talk about naturalness, because this is the reason why a lot of people suffer, struggle, fail. And if you don't understand why you struggle, suffer, fail at some things, at all things, in any area, you're going to have a problem with this. By the way, you're going to get the gold here in just a moment as to why I bundled identity-based manifesting with procrastination. Keep that in mind as you're listening. Why would Mr. 20 bundle identity-based manifesting with procrastination? It makes no sense on the surface, but there's genius here. Ready? Neville Goddard says the event must always imply the fulfillment of the wish. Always construct an event in which you believe you would naturally encounter following the fulfillment of your desire. It doesn't get any plainer than that, but the thing is, how do you get there? Now, if you believe to the point of acceptance, your life will be marvelous for you. By assuming it is done now, until I feel natural in the assumption, and that assumption, though at the moment is denied by my senses, persisted will harden into fact. One more. This is good stuff. Yeah, I'm actually semi-reading some of this, so it takes a second for it to load. This is perhaps one of my favorite ones. Take me seriously. When you know what you want in life, construct a scene which would imply your wishes fulfilled, your desires fulfilled. See it as clearly as possible. Feel its naturalness. Experiment, until you know the scene and all that it implies is real. Alrighty. I notice a lot of people really focusing on persist. I am not a fan of persist. I am a fan of play. What do you want more of in your life? If you want more persist, I'm going to suggest you persist, like most people talk about persisting. There's even people out there right now talking about having patience. I don't have patience and I don't persist. I play. And here's why. Neville Goddard said, and this is my all-time favorite quote next to the Pearl quotes. You get why I love the Pearl. If there's an area or aspect where you haven't bought it, you're going to add in bullshit and struggle. Like astrology. Yep, if only I was at the right moon sign right now. Anyway, this would make sense then, wouldn't it? My all-time favorite quote besides the Pearl quotes are this. The state that you most commonly return to is your dwelling place. I know that's not a sexy quote. That's not one of those ones where I get a lot of amens. But this is one of the absolute most overlooked secrets when it comes to Neville Goddard's work, because the state that you most commonly return to is your dwelling place. Neville compares this also to putting on a new suit. I talk about putting on a new hat. I was just given a Christmas hat the other day. I went to the pool. And a friend of mine was there with her husband. They call her husband the Hat Man. He's the only human being I know that has more hats than me. And he says, 20, where's your Christmas hat? And I said, John, I don't have one. The next day, Fiona shows up with a Christmas hat because John had 8 of them. Now he has 7, and I have 1. But I put on John's old hat, and it doesn't feel like mine at first. But I settled into it, and as I walked into the institution, otherwise known as the pool, otherwise known as the Eltham Leisure Center, I got so many compliments on my hat. I had to keep explaining it was a gift, but it felt like mine. I had embodied the spirit of wearing a Christmas hat, the spirit of Christmas, spreading good cheer. But it appears that I digress, but I want you to nail this, because the state that you most commonly return to is your dwelling place. About 20 years ago, I went on a cruise with 11 people. It's been almost 20 years, right? Wow. And for a week, 11 days, something like that, we made our home in our little room on a boat. Big boat, little room. That was home. And when we first got there, it felt like a little room. By the time we left, it felt like home. It felt like leaving home. We kept returning to the room often enough for naps, to get suntan lotion, to do things that you do when you're on a cruise. There's a hint there. Let's keep going. The state that you most commonly return to is your dwelling place. If you've ever moved, I've managed to move a dozen times throughout my life. And when you move into a new house, it's not your dwelling place. You don't even know where all the light switches are. Where's the fuse box? You discover that whenever the power goes out. Where do we put the... You don't know where anything is in the cupboards. It's where you live, but it's not your dwelling place yet. And at some point it becomes home. You keep returning to it, it becomes home. The state that you most commonly return to is your dwelling place. You keep returning, you keep exploring inside of your dwelling place becomes yours. It goes from being a house to being a home. A new state, even if you love the idea of being quote-unquote self-employed, it will feel weird. If you love the idea of this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, it's going to feel weird at first. And people will choose the devil they know instead of the savior that they are, because they know the devil. This is why we keep saying play's the way. You get to explore who you are and how this works. Neville Goddard said you came here to know imagination. And the only way to know it is to actually play a lot. Swing the bat. Discover, like my friend Tom Pranio. Tom knows how to break all the rules when it comes to playing golf, because he's swung the club so many times. It's an extension of his psyche. He even invented a putter, but more on that some other time. How many people do you know that have invented a putter? I know of one. Meanwhile, let's go back to natural. Let's talk about procrastination, because you're going to get my definition of procrastination and why I had to make a pack-up about it this year. The reason we've developed a procrastination pack and bundled it with identity-based manifesting is because what my definition of procrastination is. Procrastination is either you waiting to do something or you waiting for the universe to do something. Whatever the hell that means. That's the language that people use for me. I'm waiting. Nothing is happening. I'm waiting. I'm not doing anything. You're in a state called waiter. Right? And the key is with that, with identity-based manifesting, one of the things we discovered is you get to give life to two different kinds of states. One where you come from love. Right? I'm a loving husband, a loving puppy dad, and a loving teacher. And the second set of states that I give life to, and this is the key for action, this is the key for naturalness. I give life to states that I enjoy. I enjoy Apple products, BMWs, first class, anything, whiskey, scotches, conversations, relationships with my people. So I'm not a transactional kind of guy, I'm a relational kind of guy. I want to get to know you. This is why we have the Facebook groups and the different programs that have groups inside, like Triple D and Remarkable. Meanwhile, your experiment becomes your experience. But your key is you have to experiment. When it came to manifesting up my car, I explored experiencing my car. And I settled on two different things, locked it in real quick and easy once I decided what I wanted. And that was this. I imagined my dog in the backseat of my car. Ownership. See, what would I be doing in my car? See, if I try to imagine the car, I had problems. When I experienced what would I experience inside my car, my dog on Ticklebelly Hill. I experienced that to the point where it's natural, and that didn't take long because that's an actual experience. That's what would naturally follow if I owned a car. And for that weekend, I had a BMW that I paid cash for, paid about half the asking value, or half the book value, just for fun. This is what I do. On the other hand, when I moved to Australia from far, far away, I was on the wrong visa. They had every reason not to let me in. I was actually detained by immigration when I came in because they wanted to know, what exactly are you doing here for a year and a half on a visitor visa? We had a discussion, and they said, look, we shouldn't let you in, but we will. Wonder why. And here's the cool thing, guys. When you actually get this, I was feeling voting, and I was feeling what I would naturally feel about voting. I'm not a fan of voting, which is why we got the Pearl Power Pack. Some of y'all know that story. I don't buy into politicians. I buy into pearls. The more you play, the more natural you're going to find your scenes become. Your experiment becomes your reality. Your experience becomes your reality. Because you keep returning to your dwelling place. And here's the other key. Remember, a house becomes a home. You keep coming back, you keep exploring it, you make it yours. I didn't imagine up details about the car. I imagined up details about me and my puppy in Ticklebelly Hill. This is where we get to play. Merging love and joy. If you got gold today, that procrastination pack, go to NevilleGoddardStore.com and get that. In there we dive into giving life to two different kinds of states. States that have to do with your identity with love. Loving husband, loving teacher, loving puppy, dad, or three of mine. And then there are the states that have to do with joy. There are things that I love to do. Things that I love to have, things that I love to experience. And when I say love in that context, I want you to notice I'm going to get very precise here. I enjoy a single malt whiskey with a friend. I enjoy a cigar. I enjoy doing the podcast. I enjoy Apple products because of their ease of use for me. I enjoy driving my BMW. When I combine states that I love and states that I enjoy, movement happens. And you can't move if you don't feel natural. Movement doesn't happen unless naturalness is there. Because the amount of time that it takes for it to happen, Neville Goddard says, the degree of naturalness determines the time interval. This is the key to naturalness. This is the key for ending what most people call procrastination. This is the key for ending waiting. If you got gold, go get the procrastination pack at NevilleGoddardStore.com. Have a great day. My name is Mr. 2020, coming to you live from Melbourne, Australia. See ya.